Everyone, this is Kathy Skipper and I'm back in the Embodiment series, and this is video number 4. I didn't think I'd do a video today, and I'm in a very internal phase, letting some stuff come up that's ready to come up, and then I'd finished clearing up and I was going to go and sit down and write, and I suddenly had the feeling that it was the right moment to do this little video. And then when I sat down and realized that it was going to be about one of my favorite embodying oils, there's a little exercise at the end of the video as well. I thought, well, that's why, in a way, I'm doing the video, because my psyche is leading me to the oil that I need, which is wild vetiver or khus. And so this is one of my favorite embodying oils because, like I've said in previous videos, it's not just about grounding, it's about embodying. And these are two different things. They're interconnected and they're related, but being grounded isn't enough to be fully embodied. And I think what I love about the vetiver is that it really is an embodying oil more than a grounding oil, even though it does bring a grounding energy. It brings an earthy quality, but more than the grounding and the earthiness, what I absolutely love about it is that it's safe. It brings a safety of embodiment, and I think that's so important to have in the toolbox. This is an oil that I would use with rose attar for somebody who was dealing with sexual abuse, for example, or who was having deep emotional shadow material coming up, even material that might come from their own lives or from their ancestral stories, whatever it is. When somebody's vulnerable and that vulnerability is raw because emotions are coming up, this is one of the oils that I would use. And as I said, I would probably couple it with the rose attar. So what about its smell? So I just gonna rub some more, and as usual I rub it on my skin because I like the mix with the oils in my skin. It's got a pulse, it has got a pulse of the earth, and in that pulse is a slightly, not just earthy, but smoky, slightly disintegrating smell. But as usual, you know, like it's bringing to mind the Indian valerian, these rootsy, the ginger lily, these rootsy odors or aromas that are very earthy and slightly decomposing, but at the same time there's the aromatic quality. That's where the aliveness comes from. These medicines that come from root medicine, where the roots are aromatic, there's this beautiful, what's the word, twinning or enmeshment with these two aspects, and definitely we have it here. There's a sort of smell of dried cut wood. And that odor, as you allow it to enter into you, brings a lovely calming energy. I don't feel, often in these videos, one of the things that I hate about having to do these videos and there's no real human people in front of me, even though I try and imagine you there, is that I have a tendency to go too fast. I'm scared that I'll make a mistake, or I don't know, just there's a speediness to them usually, and I can feel after smelling the vetiver that I'm feeling calmer. There can be a pause. I can take my time. It's as if the connection to the earth, to the mother, is saying it's okay. You know, nobody's going to judge you for not getting it right all the time, or not having all the information speeding out. Or there's no fear. Sometimes I think I go fast from fear. When, as a kid, I always felt like, you know, we had a whip. My dad had a whip behind us. You know, got to be there at this time. Get up. Now's the time. And that stayed with me. And as I smell the vetiver, I'm reminded that I don't have to go to that place. That there's another kind of safety, and it is to do with the energy of the earth. Yeah, it centers as a centering, not just a reconnecting, but a centering. So as we reconnect to the earth and to this very safe, very nurturing earthy energy, it centers us. That's how I'm feeling now, much more centered than just a few minutes ago. I can even take time to drink my drink. The other thing that I think is very important with this embodiment work, and Vetiver really helps us to find that point, and it stems from this idea of centering, but centering in the body rather than in the intellect, in the mind, in the airiness of life, in the thoughts on the phone, in everything that's sort of virtual. The opposite, we get out of that armor or that castle of the intellect. Everything has to be understood, analyzed, judged, put into boxes. There's something beyond that. We go into the body, we embody, and we let go of that. We don't have to understand. With the Vetiver, we can feel, take our time, allow, without having necessarily to understand everything intellectually. I think also, and this is where I think Vetiver is very useful with the Rosetta for people who are having a hard time with maybe trauma and difficult emotions, is that the Vetiver really helps us, this safety I'm talking about, helps us slowly build a solid, loving relationship with our embodiment, with who we are in a human form. And by building up this sort of loving, safe, nurturing relationship with ourselves, our embodied selves, then we can become more confident in a way. I'm much more confident today, smelling the Vetiver, taking my time, feeling myself connected, feeling myself centered, feeling the earth holding me, feeling safe, feeling this nurturing, safe, embodied energy than I am when I'm speedily trying to get information out and feeling like a rabbit in the headlights. And as I say that, and as I smell the oil, I can feel that actually what's coming through and what I'm feeling and hopefully transmitting is an interaction that's anchored more in myself. I'm more connected to myself. I'm earthed and safe, again, the word safe, so that when I communicate, I'm communicating from a place of embodiment, of anchoredness, of belonging to my flesh and blood as much as anything else. I wanted to talk just a little bit about the actual plant, so because I think it's very interesting and that helps us to understand the action of Vetiver, because it's grown in India, this Vetiver that I have, along the Ganges, and it grows naturally there. So instead of saying it's grown, I should say it grows itself along the Ganges. And it looks like, it's those roots, it's not a big taproot, it's those sort of roots that look like a witch's hairstyle, very thin, many, many thin roots in a clump. And it's, as I said, the roots are what's aromatic and deeply penetrating and beautiful. And as these roots deeply penetrate us, as I've been trying to explain, I want you to visualize them also deeply penetrating the sandy earth that is alluvion along the river and holding it on. It's an amazing erosion control, and it's used now all over the world for erosion control. It's one of, there's no rarity to it. It's easy to grow. It's like a grass, looks like a grass, and it holds the earth on. So, when you have a river, there's a lot of erosion from the water and from the fact that waters come from the land into the river, everything's flowing into the river and from the river itself. So the natural habitat of Vetiver is along the river, and it holds the earth on. And now it's being asked to do this all over the world, which is huge because erosion is a big problem, one of the problems that leads to a lack of nutrients in the soil and difficulty growing things in the soil. And I just think that visualizing this plant holding the earth on, holding the earth together, keeping the earth intact so that life can happen, is really what it does for us. Reminds us and keeps us earthed, keeps us embodied, reminds us that we, it's there with us. It actually sort of partners with us to say, hey, I won't let you erode. I won't let you just sort of give way. And I think that's a beautiful way to think about it. Also, it resonates with the root chakra. And if you think of its aromatic roots holding deep in the earth, holding the earth, then that's another image that helps us to understand the plant. The other thing with root medicine, all root medicine in some form, and I get it very strongly with the Vetiver, is that it helps us also to recognize and to honor the fact that we wouldn't be here if we didn't have our own roots. And what are our roots? Our roots are where we've come from. They're the people that we've come from. For me, it's our mother line because of the mitochondrial DNA. It creates an embodied. The father line is something else, but the mother line is our embodied ancestral belongingness. And many of us have been cut off from that for some reason or another. In America, where I'm living, many people are cut off from their original motherline roots because if you ask them where they're from Chicago or San Francisco, but actually where are their people from? Far away. And there's often trauma in those journeys where people came and immigrated. So honoring our roots is also a huge part of embodiment. Without our roots, it's hard, and I know that from my personal experience, without our roots, it's hard to live fully and to know who we are and to have a sense of belonging and to feel safe. I feel a lot safer since I've done a lot of work on reconnecting with my roots, and I'm writing a book called Decolonizing the Motherline because I feel that most of our motherlines have been in some way colonized, which has meant that rootedness of our ancestry, the embodied ancestry, our clan, we're not getting access to the ancestral grandmothers and to that energy they bring. But that's for another video. I just wanted to talk about it just because Wild Vetiver really helps us to connect with that original material, the rootedness, the our earth. Okay, so then the other thing that I wanted to do in this video with the khus is, first of all, just very quickly, so we've talked a lot about how it helps us to feel safe and embodied. And then once we're safe and embodied, we can really allow what wants to come through us to come through, be it a creative urge, or be it at the moment in my life, I'm feeling some very old ancestral stuff coming through that's mine and my ancestors, and I'm healing that for us all. And also there's the intuition, our gut. Our gut gives us information, like I talked about in the last video, and our intuitive hunches, our intuition, our wisdom in the body that comes from the body through intuition, through the soul speaking to us. So really, the Vetiver helps us to listen to that because we are more embodied, we are safer, we're going slower, we can tune in, and this part of us, we've kind of moved out of the castle of the mind. So by listening to our body, what do we gain from that? Well, if we listen carefully, we know when we're hungry, we know when we need to sleep, we know when we want to go into nature, take our shoes and socks off and actually feel the earth. We will know more what at each time of the day and each time of the week and each time of the year, what we need. And if we honor that, we'll be healthier and we'll be happier. So, you know, sometimes our body might want to do exercise, sometimes it might want to dance, sometimes it might want to just listen and be still. And how often do we ignore what our body wants? And not only do we ignore it, I think we live in a society where we have very negative body images. So we all hate parts of our bodies, or we're very negative about our bodies, and we're using language that's very negative about our bodies, or we're trying to squeeze our bodies into a form that is commonly thought of as the most beautiful form. And that's tragic and really keeps us well away from any form of healthy embodiment, because we're just seeing the body as a superficial exterior, and whether it'll be liked or you know, loved for that. And I think this is where this exercise comes in. I think it's very, very important. So not only do we need to connect to our body wisdom, and that's where the khus can be very, very helpful, by learning to listen, as I said, to our body and its needs and its intuitions. But I think it's also important to focus on loving our body. Not just loving the feeling of being embodied, but loving all parts of our body. And we can't really love all parts of our body until we are embodied. And that's, again, where the Vetiver can be helpful. So the exercise today is, first of all, to learn and to practice spending some time noticing how you are in relationship to your body. So tuning in to the physical body, breathing and feeling it, and lingering on any part of the physical body that your attention is brought to. Could be just a feeling, or a word might come up, or a repulsion, or a thought, or a memory. Just notice what's there, first of all. And remember to breathe when you do this. Smell the Vetiver, feel the embodiedness, and notice. For example, when I tune in now, there's a heat. I can feel a heat, and I've been feeling a lot of heat. It's to do with these thyroid issues. But I'm allowing it and noticing this heat. And I think it's also a heat that's burning off some stuff. What I invite you to do, once you've tuned in and you feel that you're really becoming aware of your body and you're no longer just in your head, is to write a list of the different parts of your body that you're critical about or that you don't like. It might be just one part, or it might be several parts, or it might be all of it. I want you to really think about it, tune into it. What do you criticize the most about your body? What don't you like about your body? What would you change if you could? I mean, we live in a world where that's even possible. I'm not saying you should. And once you've made that list and you're sort of looking and aware of these parts of your body that you criticize, that you don't like, what I invite you to do next is to take each of those body parts and try and remember when that started, when you started to dislike that part. Was it something that triggered it? Did somebody say something? Were you looking in magazines and realizing that you didn't fit the image that was put out there of beauty? Was it something that happened to you? Whatever it is, just for each body part, whilst you're using the Vetiver to keep you safe, to keep you embodied, to remind you of the amazingness of having a human body and being in this life. Again, this is what the angels are jealous of us for. I want you to write down when the dislike of these parts started. And once you've written those down, you can carry on journaling about that, why you dislike them. And when you're journaling, don't think about it, just allow what wants to come up to come up. And once you've done that, you've really sort of gone deeply into the parts of your body that you're not so fond of, or you don't like, or you criticize. I then want you to look up, and you can do it on Google, the symbolism for the different body parts that you've been writing about. So, if you don't like, I never liked my nose. I've got a long nose, and I always felt, didn't want anybody to see me on the side. And I think it started at adolescence when people, at school would say something about it, and your nose grows before the rest of your face, and I'd never noticed it before. I liked myself, but then I hated it, and I hated it for most of my life. So if I was doing this, when I'm doing this exercise, I would do nose symbolism and just see what comes up. And for each of those body parts, write about what comes up and how that feels for you and what it triggers, and does it make any sense? And then when you've done all that, the next thing to do is to take each of the body parts, you might only have one or you may have several, and tune into, meaning using the Vetiver, really drop into that part of your body, feel it, become it, and notice how it feels. Remembering to breathe, taking your time, and really live in that part. Feel its aliveness, feel it, love it, be it, encompass it, embrace it. And once you really feel connected to that part, ask it if it wants to show you anything or tell you anything. Let it lead. Don't try and formulate ideas of what you think it wants to tell you. Just allow. Breathe and allow, and just notice where it leads you, what it wants to say. And journal on that. And then, lastly, when you've done that and you've felt that you've really listened to that body part, I want you to write a short letter to each of the parts that you've disliked or disowned, criticized, thanking them for all they do. So each one separately, thanking them for, sorry, phone's trying to ring me, so I'm just going to decline. It's okay. Sorry, back. Thanking them for everything that they've done for you. And really feeling it and taking the time to really think about that. What do each of these parts that you've been so busy criticizing and wanting to change and disliking or wanting to cover up, what do they actually do for you? What would you do without them? And as you choose their words, choose words that really have compassion and gratitude and love in them as you write this letter to that body part. Find ways to start to love those body parts unconditionally by, first of all, thinking what it would be like without them. What would I be like without a nose? I'd look pretty awful, and I wouldn't be able to smell. God! Isn't that funny? I've just made the connection. You know, all these years hating my nose, but it smells really well. Massage that part of you. Have a hot bath and really put some oils in the bath, or some hydrosols and a candle, or have your vetiver next to the bath, and just breathe and honor that part of you. Soak that part of you. If it's part of your body, do some body brushing. Photograph it. Love it. Our true beauty is inside us. It is our wisdom and our strength. Okay, so that's the video for today, and I'm glad I did it. And I'm really glad the vetiver called. So lots of love, and I'll see you for the next one.